What's up everybody and welcome back to my channel. Sorry you're only getting one video out of me today, but my darling Matilda is coming tomorrow and I gotta get some speakers for that, and then I'm headed to the south of France in a couple of days, so I've got a lot of stuff to get ahead of that trip. So sorry about that, but let's jump into a recap of what happened when Jenelle Evans released this documentary, quote unquote, very lightly quote unquote documentary that she edited and produced and whatever else starred in herself. So let me just say this. I watched about 40% of it last night on the initial dropping before I clicked off for the versus battle between Monica and Brandy. I'm not gonna lie, but you know, it was basically just Jenelle, David, and Barbara gaslighting everyone, trying to make everyone believe that Jenelle and David are fit parents, and it just could not be any further from the truth. So let me tell you why. I feel like it's very important before we even get into what it is that Jenelle, her mom, and her husband are trying to convince us of, that we take a look at reality. You know, within the span of that year when everything went down with the kids, 1 year, there were 25 911 calls coming out of the Eason household. Remember, there are only 52 weeks in a year. So this means that there were about 2 911 calls per month coming out of this home. That is not a stable home. That is not the place that Jenelle is, you know, trying to convince you that they lived in. She does not for 1 second even touch on the amount of 911 calls that were made about David Eason within the span of this year, including the 911 call from Nathan that tipped off the entire investigation. In her most famous 911 call, Jenelle accused her husband of pinning her down and snapping her collarbone in the middle of a fight. In another one, she accused him of smashing things around the house, including doors and walls. And she said she was so terrified, she had to run upstairs to the attic to hide. Where were her kids? Just around in the house in harm's way. She didn't mind that. There was another 911 call where she called and said that she was terrified of him and that he had a gun and she was scared of that. And there were several welfare checks, including the one from Nathan that blew the lid off of everything. I believe a producer also requested a welfare check on her on the land as well. So these are all very important things to note before getting into Jenelle's lies, fairy tales, and fallacies. That is reality. This is the entertainment BS propaganda that Jenelle put out last night. So let's get into that. So she names names within CPS, claiming that everyone acted illegally, and then she complains about some sort of superintendent. And I was like, sis, you mean superintendent? Like superintendent isn't exactly a thing. Then she talked about how when she talked to her lawyer, he told her that Kaiser was being illegally held at his grandma's house and she had to drive down to South Carolina to go pick him up herself. And so she did show footage of that, her attempting to get Kaiser, but Doris did not let up. Thank God for that. She also showed the text messages that she was sending to Doris and Nathan. She was like, I thought that if I blew up their phones, they would eventually like kind of relent. But none of that ever wound up happening. They wound up waiting for the court procedures to play out. Now, David looked like he was allergic to soap and water, you guys. I gasped when he appeared on screen because of how dirty he looked. I was like, let me pause this video. Does it stink in here? Is that how smelly this guy looks? This guy looked so gross. I really want to take bets on the last time that man took a shower. If that man takes a shower, he looks like the type to just do a simple cannonball into the swamp and consider that bathing for the week. Like, and it shows, okay? It truly does show. Now, what he does is he defends himself for shooting a 10-pound dog. David claims that Nugget was consistently biting these children on the face. Well, if that was the case, why did you not rehome her? You know what? This beautiful dog just cannot be with us because it is dangerous for my children. Let me go find an animal shelter to take her in. And I am 1000% sure that they very could have easily done that because listen, they're both unemployed. They had all the time in the world to do that. And he claimed that it happened all the time and that he would try to take good photos and videos of the kids with the dog, but the dog would keep biting them. But he never showed any evidence of that. The only thing they showed was that one clip that he used to justify shooting the dog that didn't even justify it at all. The dog was minding her own business and Ensley was all up in her grill and she didn't even bite her. She just yapped at her. And then he took her out back for all the kids to hear. And yeah, that is just no excuse whatsoever. But he claims that that is something that had been going on in his family for generations. And it just reminds me of how much dysfunctional people love to breed and pass down that dysfunction. It's just going to keep going and going and going within their bloodline. And it's a very sad thing to see. Now, Barbara, the flip-flopper, who was in the TMZ videos defending CPS's decision to keep the kids from Jenelle and even called her out publicly. Remember when they were in the parking lot together and Jenelle was hamming it up for the cameras, like holding the kids' hands, like trying to tuck them into like the car seat and stuff, like I miss you. And Barbara was like, hurry up, like they've got somewhere to be. You're doing it for the cameras. Well, Miss Flippity Floppity is now sitting here talking about, well, the CPS call I got was so suspicious. They didn't even send me a letter. Come to think of it. And she's really defending Jenelle and David here, which does not make sense because she was the one who warned us before David's mask even officially slipped off that he was the worst boyfriend Jenelle ever had and that he was going to ruin her whole life. How do you go from that to this? You know, and not only that, but she said that Jace was so terrified of him that he was wetting the bed. Now all of a sudden, you're campaigning for them, Barbara? Really? I hope this finally gets you guys to stop saying that Teen Mom 2 should have only fired Jenelle and kept Barbara. Barbara, just like Jenelle, is a steaming pile of garbage. She truly is. There is no excuse for her hopping on to this BS propaganda machine and defending these people after everything that we factually know. She even told us about Jace's psychiatrist appointment. She said the psychiatrist knows that Jace is literally terrified of David. Like, this woman, I cannot with her. I always said, listen, she is 0 for 3 in terms of well-adjusted children, okay? And the common denominator there is her parenting. She then starts complaining about how she shouldn't have been let go from the show because Jenelle was, as if she was ever even a main cast member of the show. Like, how did this 70-year-old woman really think that the show was going to get rid of her daughter, the woman on like the letterheads of the show, one of the faces of the show, and just let her keep going rather than just replace Jenelle with another 20-something-year-old. It just did not make any sense. Like, at this age, it's like, I'm sure you've got better things to worry about than freaking Teen Mom 2, Barbara. She then starts talking about how Amber's still there despite allegedly attempting to hack her baby daddies with machetes and the racism of the other girls. Okay, so this is where things get really funny, guys. In the middle of Barbara complaining that like, oh my God, she hacked someone with a machete. She said some stuff racist. Why are they still there? But Jenelle isn't. Ensley, you only hear her off. You never see her like on camera, but you hear her like mumbling something. And then Janelle's like, what? No, get out. I'm filming. Get out. I'm filming. Go play. And like, she just shuffles her out the door. And I'm like, imagine you're doing a documentary trying to prove to people that you are the Mother Teresa of all mothers. Amazing. You know, and here you are yelling at your, 2-3-year-old because you want to film a documentary defending your parenting. You couldn't even like lovingly tell her to leave the room while you film. You have to literally yell at this girl. At first I was like, who is she yelling? Is that David that she's yelling at? I could have sworn he knew she was filming. He just appeared in the thing. Like, the way that she was yelling was like a lover's quarrel with her and David, but come to find out it was her toddler. Ironic. And this is the reason why she took down the video and re-uploaded it again to trim out this part. But remember, the internet is forever. So if you missed out on it, just search like the internet. You'll find it. You'll find it on Twitter. You'll find it on Facebook. You'll find it somewhere. So after she dismisses her daughter like a total nuisance or something like that, she prompts Barbara to keep complaining about how other girls are still on the show despite, having instances of racism. And I really don't understand why she thinks that that is going to help her own case, because Jenelle has had her own instances of racism, and that was one of the major reasons why her husband David was even fired in the first place, right? So like, Jenelle used to date a biracial, black and white biracial guy named Kiefer. What did she do when they broke up? She called him the N-word via text, hard R. So what? And she managed to stay on the show 8 years after that. So why are you complaining? You know, like, it's not news to you that people who do racist things get to stay on the show. Clearly, like, you got to last another 8 years after that. And then, like, they keep on harping on Amber and the machete situation as well. Like, as if Jenelle did not pull out a gun, chase someone down with her child in the car, and whip it out on this strange person for literally no reason. And guess what happened after that? She got to stay on the show as well. So there's literally no double standard here, Jenelle. The cast and crew had finally had enough of living in fear of your husband. You can live in fear of him all you want. Clearly that is what you want to do, but they don't have to. Like, they don't have to. They are employees of a network, and it is the network's job to protect them. And David is a dangerous person. Like, he proved himself to be an incredibly dangerous person. And that is the reason why they could no longer work with you. Like, he was threatening to pop up on shoots knowing that he wasn't supposed to. What do you want MTV to do? They would be so incredibly liable if your unhinged husband did something to their crew. Then they start whining about Nessa epically dragging Jenelle over Colin Kaepernick. And Barbara claims that that is a result of favoritism. And then she gets really annoying here because she is just so dismissive of something so incredibly serious while also validating the very real threat that the crew members, producers of the show were under when it pertains to David freaking Eason. Okay, she goes, oh, like, they had me and Jenelle filming in Atlanta, like all these other states and cities and stuff to get away from David. Like, they kept talking about how they were scared that, like, if they came anywhere near him, he would shoot them. This is something that David regularly threatened people with. Like, you could be there, like, invited to shoot and stuff on his property, but all of a sudden he would snap and say, get off my property. You know, and he would talk about how if someone was on his property and he no longer wanted them there or whatever, didn't want them there, he had the right to shoot them. So of course, these people were terrified of him, you know, and that happening. Acts so dismissive about it, which is so weird because she simultaneously talks about how, hey, don't get me wrong, he was very dangerous at the time. So why are you shrugging off their very valid concerns, Barbara? You know, this woman is a clown and a half. I hope that this video finally ends you guys standing for her because she really does not deserve it. She is problematic her damn self. Jace does not stand a chance with her either. You know, his best bet would have been to be adopted into a functional family because she is just not it. Now, Jenelle starts crying towards the end about how she tried so hard to make things work, but that is not true either. We saw her for years, both on camera and on social media, recklessly, continuously threaten to quit and talk about how she's got all these other networks competing for her presence. These tears are not the tears of a woman who is booked and busy like she always claimed that she would be with or without MTV. So what really is going on, sis? I already know the answer is nothing, but you know, your struggle YouTube thing. But it's so funny how the chickens come home to roost. You act too big for something and now all you're dedicated your time to is trying to tear the same thing that you felt like you were so above down because they don't want you back. Funny, funny, funny. Did anyone else notice how she cried about losing her gig on Teen Mom 2 a lot more than she cried over losing her kids? Like, the way she cried over losing her kids was like, oh my God, I didn't realize my bag of Doritos was over. It's like, I have to go back to the store. It's like 30 minutes away. But when it came to losing her job on Teen Mom 2, she was crying so hard you would think someone took her kids away. Anyway, you guys, those are just my thoughts on Jenelle's ridiculous attempt to rewrite history on her little, I'm telling my truth, whatever you want to call it, special that she had to edit down after she was on camera yelling at her poor 2-year-old daughter. As usual, I'm more excited to hear what you have to say about everything, so please make sure to leave all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below and we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.